Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options to Play video update. So I've tried to do some of the videos this week, focusing on earnings, just because we're into the heart of earnings season, and a lot of the action ties into earnings somewhat, right? That being said, it definitely has been a more challenging earnings reporting period, for a few reasons. I mean, not only in the fact that the market's been acting very, very weak, volatility is high, but options pricing is high, right? When the ranges are wide, volatility is high, option pricing goes up. Um, Also, I mean, stocks are pretty much, or a lot of stocks are pretty much like straight down into earnings, which makes for like more challenging setups because bounces tend to get sold more or more quickly, right? So the bounces aren't sticking around. So, kind of like tough like scenarios where I mean you can't really get paid on the upside. Option pricing's high, so just a lot of like tougher setups this quarter. Also, I love ramp into the report strategies. You've heard me talk about it a bunch in the past. It's one of like my favorite setups around earnings because looking for a move 3 to 5 days before the report. Hopefully, if you time it well and the stock moves in your favor, you can lock in some money, book the trade, or reduce risk ahead of earnings, so you don't have as much exposure going into the actual report, right? And what I like to look for are those companies that have a strong history of rallying into earnings, and that revolves around good, consistent beat and raises, right? So like AMD, I have up here. I mean, you can see like going into the July report, the stock had a really strong run. Going into the October report, the stock had a really strong run, right? So coming into the quarter, this would be something that I'd be thinking of a ramp into report candidate. It has a good history of beat and raises. It has a history of rallying into earnings, but the problem is that the overall market is dictating the action, right? Part of what works for ramp into the report trades is like this consistent, predictable trading, right? Like if the market's like stable, then traders might get more aggressive on a stock ahead of earnings because they think like, okay, stock has a history of beating, maybe a good quarter's coming, so I'm going to position a little ahead of time. But if the market's volatile and the stocks are flying all over the place, and this point pretty much more to the downside, then people aren't going to want to step in 3 to 5 days before earnings because AMD could be another 5, 6, 10, 11 points lower from here, 3 days from now. So it's just making for tougher setups. Sometimes you do get bounces, but right now it seems like more of like 1 to 2 days now, and usually like the ramp into report windows 3 to 5, but right now maybe it's more like 1 to 2, and maybe even more just like the afternoon of, maybe you see some stuff like tick up. So it's tough, it's different, right? We haven't seen a reporting period where the market's been this weak in a while, so it's creating a lot of different setups, and it's making for a much more selective process when it comes to like screening for earnings trades. So whether that's like playing the report or stuff before the report or even stuff after the report, because some of these gap ups they're just not holding, right? Like normally I like to wait for like a gap up, see if the stock is met with an 8 EMA, and then look for a continuation. But stocks that gap up seems like they're just drifting right back down, right? And then stocks that gap lower, they just keep running lower to the downside, and they're not letting the 8 EMA catch up on the downside. So there's just a lot of different action, and we're going to adapt to it because not everything is always the same, and what happens this week might be different next week because the market keeps changing. The movement is so great that what was working this week might not be working next week. So we're just going to take it day to day. But if you're wondering why you're not seeing more of those ramp into the report strategies, it's because of the overall market. I mean, a lot of the action is dictated by the overall market, and right now it's just you're not getting people like wanting to really position into earnings because I mean the volatility is too high, and also stocks really aren't getting rewarded that great for their reports. All right. But again, like I said, things can change quickly, and we'll see how next week goes. All right. So if you like this video and you're looking for more information about trading earnings with options, please follow up the link in the description of the video for more information on options and play. Have a great night, stay well, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.